us, and they can have it with you too. The last thing I wanted to talk about on the show tonight is, let me take a sip from the chalice. I always struggle with how to frame our conversations about this certain team. Because we've got an audience that ranges from like 15 to 85, and depending on how old you are, will determine how you feel about this brand. So let me hit you with this. So Brent hit us up, and he said, hey, Matt Rhule has been rolling in recruiting. He's got a good portal class, too. Is Nebraska able to make a year one leap, or should we just be cautiously optimistic about this year and excited about the future? So how serious should you be taking Nebraska? Let me be blunt with you, because I'm not a Nebraska fan, so I can afford to feel this way. I don't care about this year. If they do come through this year, that'll be wonderful. I'll celebrate it right along with you guys, but I'm not putting any eggs in the 2023 basket. I'm paying attention to what's happening well beyond 2023. Because whether they go over or under 6 wins this fall, I've watched Matt Rhule take over programs before, and they've been terrible multiple times in year one and gone on to have quantum leaps in year 2 and year 3. So it wouldn't send up any red flags or sound any alarm bells for me if they went 4-8 this year, for all I care. But I think they'll be a little bit better than that because of what you just talked about. They portaled very well and very strategically, and I'll talk about that in a second. But man, I'm glad Matt Rhule's in college football. I know it's not great to wish ill on any guy professionally, and I wasn't rooting for him to be fired at Carolina, but he was fired anyway. But then we got a college guy back in college. I'm happy about that. Well, I don't cover the Sunday game. I cover the Saturday game. He put some immediate adrenaline into Nebraska football through recruiting and through the transfer portal. Colin, do we have the Ben Stevens tweet, by the way? Just to give you guys an idea of what's been going on up there. This is from Ben Stevens. 5 of the 6 highest-rated 2024 recruits in the state of Nebraska have now committed to the Huskers. Matt Rhule getting to work quick. And they're projected to go 6 for 6 here, so let's just keep an eye on that. Carter Nelson is he's the number 2 tight end in the country. High 4-star kid, top 40 overall. Chose Nebraska over Georgia, Notre Dame, Penn State, Bama, 6'4", 205. Everyone wanted him. So this is not exclusively just a bunch of kids in Nebraska that had offers from Nebraska and no one else. That's not necessarily what's happening right now. That's why they've got the 13th ranked recruiting class in the country and not the 43rd ranked recruiting class in the country. But you know what else they did? If you want to talk about 2023, they got Jeff Sims out of the portal. I don't rank our guys in the transfer portal here. We got an entire committee that does that. But I got to take a little issue with Jeff Sims being no higher than the 11th rated quarterback in the 24/7 Sports transfer portal quarterback rankings. I'll make you a friendly wager. I don't think there'll be 10 better than him this year from the portal. And he's been dropped into a tailor-made offensive system, I think, and some coaches think. And I'm very excited to watch him get paired up with some of the guys elsewhere on that offense they brought in out of the portal. Think it's a great fit. Think that he's underappreciated because it didn't work out at Georgia Tech. To keep those peepers glued on Jeff Sims. Could be a really, really instrumental player in deciding the direction of the Big Ten West this year. But Scott Frost, when he was at Nebraska, the thing I still remember the day he got fired, whenever our next show was, I came on air after Scott Frost got fired. I remember this vividly because I don't normally like to take shots at guys unnecessarily, but when Scott Frost got fired at Nebraska, my mind kept coming back to the same thing. And that is when people would ask, what went wrong? I answered with this. There was no point in Scott Frost's tenure there where if you asked me what is Nebraska football right now, I could give you a quick answer. And that's bad because that means you didn't have an identity. You will not have that issue with Matt Rhule. You will know what Nebraska football is like, and you'll know it quick under Matt Rhule. That doesn't mean it's an overnight turnaround. That doesn't mean you guarantee 8 or 9 or 10 wins this year, but it would shock me if he didn't massively turn around the fortunes of that program. And the reason that's exciting is because, you've got that debate that goes on amongst hardcore college football fans about whether the sport has passed certain programs by. And they say it about Miami, and I think it's ludicrous. They just hadn't had the right coaching staff down there. But Miami can still be a perennial powerhouse, is my point. Can Nebraska be that? They were once upon a time. Could they be that again? Like, this team won 3 titles in the 90s. You hear me out there, college freshmen? Yeah, the University of Nebraska, 3 national championships in a decade. Some of us were alive then, is the point. It's not that long ago. And but there are people who would say, okay, but the recruiting dynamic, there's been such a paradigm shift. Nebraska's never doing that again. I'm in that camp. That doesn't mean I couldn't be wrong. I'm in that camp. I don't ever think Nebraska could just perennially be parked inside the top 3 of the sport. But whatever their ceiling is, you will find it out. So that's the fun part. For people like me, you're going to find out whether I'm right or wrong, even if I am right. Let's say they're capable of being a top 10 program. They hadn't been close to that either. What if they are capable of hovering as the 9th best program in the country? If they are, they'll do it under Matt Rhule, is my point. And so I don't have much doubt about that. Now, I'm the same guy who thought Scott Frost would work out there as well. But when you do the postmortem on Scott Frost and you realized where they lacked, and then you cross-reference it with what Matt Rhule's strengths are, you realize those buckets they needed to fill, they filled, and then overflowed a little bit with the guy they just hired. So, Matt Rhule, Nebraska, very happy that he's back in the college football building. We're going to be back here Sunday night.